Hello, and welcome to 20 Lore Pro, a community of Lorcana players who enjoy deck building, competing, and opening Lorcana product. You can find out more at our Discord community, 20lorepro/Discord, link in the description. We have tons of upcoming events, deck lists, and deck discussions, like in today's video, where we streamed Clockwork Games' 5-round Swiss 1K Lorcana tournament, which featured over 30 players competing for the grand prize. In this video, we'll be watching round 5, Maxwell, piloting Amethyst Steel Control, versus Steven, piloting Ruby Amethyst. Wish our competitors luck and enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. Today we are in College Station, home of A&M, at Clockwork Games, hosting a 1K Lorcana tournament. We want to thank Clockwork Games for hosting this tournament, and you, the viewers, for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more about 20 Lore Pro, join us over on the Discord, where we have tons of deck lists, deck discussions, and YouTube videos over the latest decks. Thank you for joining. I'll be today's announcer, SirAshtown. In the background, we have our producers, Luxac, and as many of you may know from the 20 Lore Pro Discord, Stunning Rob. Today, we are entering into round 5 of 5 before we hit top 8. Sometimes it's hard to get players to do top 8 due to cuts, or maybe they split the prize, but we'll see if we can't get some players to play during the top 8. We're just waiting for the overlay to update with the player names as well as the colors that they're playing. May have already updated. Alright, it looks like it has updated. So this is round 5. We're watching Maxwell with Amethyst Steel versus Steven piloting Amethyst Ruby. Again, I'm your announcer, SirAshtown, and I want to thank you so much for joining us. Last round we saw a Amber Ruby Mufasa deck list against a Ruby Amethyst spellbook. It was a pretty fun game to watch, and I'm interested to see another Amethyst Steel Control versus a Amethyst Ruby deck. If you have missed any of today's rounds, you're welcome to check out our YouTube later on the week over at 20 Lore Pro. We'll have all of today's rounds that have been covered on the Twitch stream on our YouTube channel. Well, we're so appreciative of these two players who volunteered to play on camera for us for round 5. It's always fun to see new decks be played by new players, as well as different playmats and playing sleeves that we see, as Flying in the Twitch chat has pointed out. Really excited to see a big Tinkerbell playmat along with the sleeves. We see Steven won the die roll, and he's going to be going first. You can see the records up there beneath their names. Looks like Steven's gone 2-2. Meanwhile, Maxwell with Amethyst Steel has gone 2-0-2, meaning that he's got 2 wins and 2 draws. These two players are resolving their mulligans. If you've enjoyed today's tournament, we'll be hosting another tournament up in Fort Worth with Crimson Lion Games as we prepare to go to PPG Houston. If you haven't used your Twitch Prime yet and you have that subscription available, feel free to subscribe to our Twitch channel, which helps us travel around Texas and show you the best in competitive Lorcana. We see Maxwell using Pokemon energy in place of cards to represent his Inkwell, playing a turn 1 Olaf. Steven, not wanting to be outdone, plays his turn 1 Olaf. So many of these Ruby Amethyst decks playing the turn 1 1/3s that can be used to cast Teeth and Ambitions. Maxwell playing a turn 2, I believe, Blue Fairy. There's that Blue Fairy up for you to see. It's got Evasive. Whenever you play a Floodborn character, you may draw a card. Steven taking advantage of that Olaf on the board, using it to cast a Metamim Fox after gaining a lore. Maxwell inking a Binja and uses Smash to take out that Metamim Snake. Allowing him to quest up. Gain that extra lore. Steven following it up with a Minnie Mouse Surfer. This character has been so strong, we've seen it all throughout the tournament. Just this 1/3 evasive 2 lore character, able to come out early like this and really gain a lot of lore before it can be taken care of. Maxwell, also not wanting to be outdone, plays his Metamim Snake, bouncing his Olaf. I know what many of you may be thinking, how many Floodborn characters is Maxwell playing? I'm not too sure myself. I'm starting to question if a card is Floodborn or not. But it looks like Metamim Snake is a Storyborn character. It's always hard to kind of keep up with some of these keywordings that are on the characters, as we see more and more sets draw to those keywords. Steven playing his Merlin Rabbit. Flying, you might be right with the 4 Tinkers and the 3 Ursulas, at least those. Well, there's a great Steel Floodborn right there in this big beast. One of the best cards from set 2, just allowing you to draw a card in addition every single upkeep if it has no damage. One of the strongest cards that we see. Even if it does have damage and it's not able to give you an extra card, he becomes a huge beater that can be an incredible problem for any of your cards on your board. Sam, thank you so much for pointing that out. I did not realize that that was a fact, that all Floodborns have shift. That's something about having a good community, is that we're all teaching each other all the time. Steven looks like he's got a lot of cards in hand, trying to decide what he wants to ink and keep. 5-5, this game is looking pretty good against both these players. Yep, those sure are. Those are Pokemon energy. Nice to see how different players try to figure out ways to not put their hand in their Inkwell. I can't tell y'all how many times I have accidentally put my hand in my Inkwell and not quite clear which is my Inkwell, which is my hand. Now I've developed the habit of using some type of chip to represent my hand, or a dice, that way I can separate them. Steven playing Merlin Goat, gaining some lore. Merlin Goat just being so strong, able to gain you lore when it ETBs and when it leaves. When you play bounce cards like Madam M Snake and Madam M Fox, really makes his exiting ability very strong when it gains you lore. Flying, I believe that's the reason why different players use those energies or even mana from Magic the Gathering in their inkwell, is so that way they don't accidentally put their hands in their inkwell. Can't be for sure, maybe just be a player preference, but as long as both players understand what they represent, it seems to be an okay strategy. I have a buddy of mine who plays with the Japanese manas from Magic the Gathering, the Japanese lands that were so popular during Neon Dynasty. It looks very cool. Now we see a Yzma entering the battlefield, able to exile something, allowing Maxwell to draw 2 cards. Yzma just being such a great card that can either target your own characters, which we saw in this case, or target your opponent's cards. If your opponent's got a really tough to deal with character and they're about to win the game, just being able to use Yzma to exile them, even at the cost of allowing your opponent to draw 2 cards, can be a game-saving strategy. In this case, Maxwell uses it to draw and gain more resources, so that way he can have more answers. Steven with that Minnie Mouse Surfer, the Goat, and the Olaf chooses to do some damage to that beast. That way it can't gain more cards from Maxwell. Questing with the Minnie Mouse Surfer. Trying to think of what the best play is for Steven. He decides to take out that beast, that way it won't be a big challenger in the future. Followed up by a Maleficent to draw some cards. Steven inking a Teeth and Ambition, casting a Madam M Fox to take care of the Madam M Snake on Maxwell's board, leaving Maxwell with just the Yzma. Yzma not being a card to ignore, just a strong character that can quest for 2, really can just go away with that 4/4 body. Maxwell, thinking about his turn, plays a rabbit, drawing himself 1 card and hopefully 1 more answer to anything that Steven can place before him. Luring with that 2 quest Yzma. Chooses to ink. Bouncing back that Merlin Rabbit, that way he can draw himself another card with that Madam Mim Fox. That Merlin Rabbit just doing so much advantage this game, seeing Maxwell just draw so many cards off of it. Merlin Rabbit having become a staple in a lot of these Ruby Amethyst Steel decks, as well as the Ruby Amethyst. Steven drawing off of that Maleficent, trying to find the best follow-up play. Trying to think of what the best card is to play. Steven's contemplating Looking at a Yzma and a Madam Fox, Maxwell's got a pretty good board state. Chooses to ink a Crab. Play his own Madam Fox 4-3, getting rid of Yzma 4-4. Not wanting Maxwell at his 10 lore to gain any more. Madam Fox just having that rush ability after it bounces something really gives that card the ability to come in and take care of a lot of threats. Maxwell using Madam Fox instead of questing to draw 2 cards, trying to find some more answers or more plays. A lot of ink on his side of the board. Playing a follow-up Yzma, wanting to get rid of that Minnie Mouse Surfer that has been causing Steven to gain so much lore this game at the cost of allowing him to draw 2. Maxwell bouncing back Yzma with Madam Mim's Snake, just giving that Yzma another chance to exile a character to draw 2 cards. Yzma has been proving to be a vital asset for Maxwell this game, as Maxwell has not only drawn for himself, but also gotten rid of threats with Yzma. Steven counting up his inkwell. Casts a Maui to take care of that Madam M Fox. Followed up by another Maleficent. Maui being another rush character with 6-5, able to take out most characters so far in Lorcana. Maxwell drawing off of that rabbit again. Chooses to ink a Madam M Fox for 5. Ink, casting Grab Your Swords. One of the damage spells that these Amethyst Steel decks play in order to help clear out the board on their opponent's side. Grab Your Swords being just this 5-drop uninkable that can deal 2 damage to every character. Really strong against these low to the ground decks. Steven casting his Ursula, trying to draw more cards, but also have a 2/8 body that can lure for 3. Really strong. It's very difficult for decks that can't deal a lot of damage at once to handle. We're sitting here with Maxwell at 10 lore, Steven at 11. This game has been very close, back and forth. Each player drawing quite a few cards and having answers for what the other player is playing. Maxwell counting up how much ink he has, that way he can figure out if he can do a double play. Trying to figure out how much and what cards Steven has in his discard pile to figure out the best strategy. Sometimes if you know that your opponent's playing Be Prepared, it could cause you caution before you start putting out too many characters on your side of the board. Maxwell choosing to play a Merlin Rabbit, drawing an additional card. Inks and lures. (12-11). Maxwell follows up with a Yzma, getting rid of that hard to deal with Ursula. We saw this Yzma get bounced earlier by the Madam M Fox. Now it's being used here to get rid of this troublesome Ursula. I'm not quite sure if there's anything in Maxwell's deck besides Ursula that could directly deal with Ursula. Maybe using a Cinderella if they play that. But Ursula being a great target for Yzma. Steven drawing his 2 cards off that Yzma. Takes his turn, draws a 3rd card. Once you get to draw that many times, you're really looking pretty deep into your deck, getting to see, or at least have more chances to see cards that you'd like to. Your odds are going up of what card you'd like to see getting into your hand. Steven inks and plays a 2nd Ursula, making Maxwell go down to 11 and drawing Steven a card, making Maxwell have another Ursula to face down with that 2/8 3 lore body. Steven trying to figure out what he wants to ink, if he wants to ink. Decides to follow up with a spell book. That was a great turn by Steven, just having that Ursula and the ability to play Spellbook. Spellbook has been really a card that we've seen a lot of Ruby Amethyst decks that kind of helps finish off the game as it gets to the late portion of the match. Maxwell, we have seen Maxwell ink Binja. Binja being that card that a lot of steel decks have used to get rid of Spellbook. Double Goat right here would be pretty good, I agree. Maxwell trying to determine what he wants to do for his turn. Decides to lore with everything, giving him 5 lore. Putting him within, you're right, the double goat range for himself. Plays another blue fairy. Followed up by a Elsa, which is a shift character, allowing Maxwell to draw off that blue fairy. Tapping down that Ursula, which can no longer lore next turn. Blue fairy just giving you the ability to draw every time you play a Floodborn has been a really great card for Maxwell this game. Seeing the Elsa come down, Steven decides to scoop it up and go into game 2. What a great game 1 by both these competitors, Maxwell and Steven, giving Maxwell piloting Amethyst Steel the win. We'll enter into game 2 to see if Steven going first can't bring it back. As we're entering into game 2 of round 5, I want to thank everyone for joining us today here at 20 Lore Pro. We're here in College Station, home of A&M at Clockwork Games, who's hosting a 1K Lorcana tournament. So far, there's been 32 players here today, and a lot of people have been having so much fun. If you've missed out on any of the rounds, or you want to go back and watch any of these matches, feel free to go to our YouTube, 20 Lore Pro, and watch these rounds later on in the week. We also have previous tournaments that we've been to across Texas where we've showcased some of the greatest in competitive Lorcana. If you'd like to check out our 20 Lore Pro Discord, we have tons of deck lists, deck discussions, and YouTube videos where we have lots of deck techs over what the most competitive players in Lorcana are doing today. I want to thank you again for joining us. My name's SirAshtown. I'm our announcer for today. In the back, we have our producers, Luxac, as well as the creator of 20 Lore Pro, Stunning Rob. We want to thank y'all, the audience, for watching today. If you have a Twitch Prime subscription and you haven't used it yet, feel free to use it with us as we try to stream as much as we can these 1K Lorcana tournaments for your viewing pleasure. In 2 weeks from now, we'll be going to Fort Worth to Crimson Lion Games, where we'll be watching another Lorcana 1K tournament. Last time we were there, Crimson Lion Games had over 30 players as well. Looks like we had a name change in between the matches with ttv.itsme D. For the sake of the video, I'm just going to call TTV, call them D. Well, let's wish D and Steven good luck as they go into game 2. Hope they have a good game and that their mulligans go well for them. Thank you so much for joining me today, and looking forward to see how these two compete in game 2 of round 5. GD Kin DFW, you may be right with that Crimson Lion Games tournament. It may just be a Enchanted Elsa tournament. I think a lot of game stores in the future are going to be switching over to a card prize support format. Disney and Ravensburger have been talking about how they don't want to do cash prize outs anymore. And so a lot of these tournament organizers are going to switch over to cards or sealed product. So with Crimson Lion Games, I think you are correct now that I'm thinking about it, that they will be doing an Enchanted Elsa as well as other prize support for the tournament. Here we go off into game 2 of round 5, D versus Steven. D playing his turn 1 Olaf, with Steven playing a turn 1 and then able to cast a Madam Mim Snake. Madam Mim Snake just being such a strong character, being a 3/3, able to take out that Olaf, followed up by that Maleficent, drawing Steven a card. D casting his own Maleficent, trying to find some resources, some answers for Steven's plays. Steven inking a 1-drop mini mouse to cast a Merlin Rabbit, drawing his own set of cards. We'll see if D decides to make a copy and draw his own card with Merlin Rabbit, as they both are playing Merlin Rabbit. Merlin Rabbit just being such a strong card that has consistently drawn so many for both players this game. D deciding to trade Maleficents. Decides to ink a Binja. Use Awful Lore to cast a Goat, gaining himself 1 lore. So far we're early on in the game, going into turn 5. Steven deciding to lore up, going up to 5. Casting a Madam Mim Fox to return that rabbit back to hand. That way Steven can draw a card and get a 4/3 rush on the board. This 4/3 rush able to take out just so many targets in D's deck. Looks like Steven's thinking about whether or not he wants to pass turn. Looks like Steven does. Nexus, thank you for confirming that Enchanted Elsa is going to be at Crimson Lion Games. Excited to see that whenever it does happen. Having cards as price support really allows for stores to play all the way out until top 8, since players are not as easily able to split cards as they are to split cash prizes or boxes. Steven casting a Beast. One of the strongest cards from set 2, really just giving such an advantage, able to draw an extra card during their upkeep. Steven finding a way to possibly deal with it or get ahead on lore. Decides to play a Minnie Mouse Surfer. Playing the lore game, unable to get targeted due to its evasive nature. Minnie Mouse Surfer just being such a strong card in these Ruby Amethyst decks. Steven inking a Snake. That way they can cast a Maleficent and draw a card. Always trying to find more resources, stay ahead in the hand. We see him use that Madam M. Fox to cast Friends on the other side. Drawing 2 more, which is a total of 3 cards this turn. And using his other characters to lure up. What a big turn for Steven, just being able to draw 3 cards and play some more threats down the board like Minnie Mouse. Really has some lore advantage out, while also trying to gain some card advantage. D, on his side of the board, possibly having Tinkerbell or maybe Grab Your Swords would be great in this position, just be able to clean up some of these cards and put damage on others that you don't want to see on the board for quite too long. We'll see what D can find and what he's going to play. Nexus in the Twitch chat pointing out that the Crimson Lion Games tournament that we're going to cover is February 3rd. If you'd like to see the 20 Lore Pro crew, we are going to be in Houston during the PPG event that they're hosting. D using the Merlin Goat to sing Friends on the Other Side, trying to find an answer to all of Steven's lore that he has on his side of the board. D deciding to quest with the Beast. Oh, I'm sorry. He decides to sing with the Beast. Grab Your Swords, dealing 2 damage to all of Steven's characters. Getting rid of a plethora of Steven's cards. Followed up by a smash for that Minnie Mouse Surfer, which is incredibly hard to deal with. Clearing up most of the board while still keeping so many cards in D's hand. Steven now looking at a smaller board state than when he had passed the turn, trying to decide how he can recover. D's still able to play an ink and passes the turn. Steven having a Madam M. Fox on board can deal 4 damage to that Beast. That Beast being a 3/5, which has played a pretty vital role to D's strategy, as D has drawn 2 to 3 times already with this Beast. Madam Mim already having 2 damage on it, though, means losing Madam Mim's Fox. We see a Maui in Steven's hand. A good card to be able to take out and banish Beast while surviving. Lots of options on Steven's end. Just trying to figure out the right order in which to play them in can be some of the vital, most important and vital aspects of the game. Using 4 lore, Steven chooses to play Rabbit first to gain more card information. Uses that the Madam M Fox to put damage on Beast, making it unable to allow D to draw an additional card during D's upkeep. Steven playing and inking a Merlin Goat to play a Spellbook. Spellbook costing 1 to give you 1 lore. D for his turn, able to cast a Merlin Rabbit, drawing another card, getting more resources in the hand. Both players taking their time and really thinking through their moves, as game 1 has already gone to D. Steven does not want to lose another game and be out. D having quite a good quite a good board state, but there's always the looming be prepared in the background that Steven may have to play. We see a Tinkerbell getting inked by D. Maybe even a foil one at that. Decides to smash to get rid of this rabbit, allowing Steven to draw a card. D seeing that Steven has 7 lore already, not wanting him to gain too much more. That way D can take this game away already at 6. And unable to challenge Beast, which is now able to lore for 2. And not able to be destroyed unless we see Steven play his 5-drop Maui. We saw last turn that Steven had the Maui in hand, decided not to play it in lieu of playing a Merlin Rabbit. Using 4 mana, casting another Merlin Rabbit. Merlin Rabbit having been used by both players so many times this game, allowing them to draw lots of cards and gain more and more resources and information. Steven opts to ink that Maui that we saw earlier in his hand, uses the spellbook to gain a lore, and passes to D. D playing his own rabbit, drawing another card. We're seeing what makes really this Amethyst Steel deck shine in the late game with this control, just ink and play cards and control the board. Cleans up a Maleficent with Let the Storm Rage On, allowing D to draw a card in addition to getting rid of that Maleficent. D also uses Smash to get rid of Steven's Merlin Rabbit. Doesn't mind that he drew a card. but he did wipe out his board, allowing him to lore and not worry about any of his characters being opposed. This beast able to just lore for 2 every turn. All of his characters. Oh, and Steven with a big be prepared. Steven, seeing the writings in the sand, decided not to allow D to continue to gain lore after lore each turn. Steven playing his own one drop mini, as well as gain a lore off of the spellbook. We're here in game 2, 9-9, Steven versus D. This game has been back and forth, each player drawing a card, gaining resources. Really not seeing both of these players rush out their hands, opting to play a more conservative game. That way they can make an assured win. D playing his Merlin Goat, gaining 1 lore on ETB. A card that we have used D sing with in the past, as well as not be afraid to lore and then get rid of. So far, we've seen 1 be prepared from Steven so far. Not sure how many more we may see this game. Getting a large amount of mana ready, or of ink ready, plays a Ursula. Ursula just being a huge creature, just able to have a 2/8 body and lore for 3 makes this character really strong. Using the Minnie Mouse to lore, helping it cast a snake and then gaining lore. Seems like a pretty strong turn. Having a 2/8 is incredibly hard to deal with when you don't have a damaged beast on board. It looks like D's asking Steven about his lore count, which went up to 12. I'm sorry, back down to 11. Now, we saw last game D not being able to have any singular card directly deal with Ursula, opting to use Yzma to get rid of Ursula. This time, D having enough ink to cast Elsa, tapping down that troublesome Ursula, now allowing Steven to be able to ink with it next turn. Able to gain more lore. Steven really looking at his outs, looking at an Elsa that can lore for 3, a goat that when it dies will give him another lore, and even an Olaf. Every lore seems to count in this grindy game that has gone back and forth between these 2 players. Elsa being a really star of the show during the first set. Love to see the comeback that it's made in some of these decks. Steven playing a Peter Pan's Shadow, one of the evasive creatures that has seen more and more play, even today in our tournament. Peter Pan's Shadow having evasive and rush with that 2/3 body, able to lore for 2. Followed up by a goat. These goats this late in the game are really going to make a big difference when they're going back and forth and grabbing the swords, tinkerbelling, being prepared, back and forth, getting rid of characters. These goats are really going to gain a lot of lore for these players, as well as Steven's spellbook. Steven passes, which means that D is going to be able to gain a lot of lore, especially off of this Elsa. With that 4/6 body, Elsa herself is quite hard to deal with. D counting it out. He knows he's going to get at least 5. Looking at Steven's board, who has a Ursula on board. knows the next turn he can get 7. Plays a Binja to get rid of Steven's spellbook. Binja being the premier steel card that can get rid of items on the opponent's side of the field. Binja being a 2/3 that lures for 2. Really strong character. I've seen some of these steel decks as of late try to go back to set 1's Beast, which was the original item destroyer, but not every deck is going back and forth. Some are choosing Beast, some are choosing Binja. You see D lore. And as I said from the last game, not a lot of things that D can do to take care of Steven's Ursula except use Yzma, allowing Steven to draw 2 cards. Seems like D has had more and more answers this game against Steven, reminding his opponent that he's able to draw off that Yzma. What a good sportsmanship. Steven staring down at a lot of lore on the board. Hopefully has found a Be Prepared, or at least a way to get a Be Prepared. Having drawn 3 cards deep during that last turn, 2 off of Yzma, 1 for the upkeep. Lures up to 17. This is back a card to hand. We see a goat. $19.20, I believe what happened was we saw the goat go up to 19 after the bounce, played it, and then we see a spellbook play to finish off the game to gain the last bit of lore to go to 20. That came down to the wire, and it was Goat that made the difference. Both players trying to utilize it to the best of Goat's abilities, and Steven just coming and squeaking exactly on the mark for 20 to get the win. We're here in round 5, game 2. Steven just took the win, meaning that we're going to game 3. Steven versus D. D piloting Amethyst Steel with Steven piloting Amethyst Ruby. I want to thank you so much for joining today for 20 Lore Pro. We're here today at College Station at Clockwork Games, who's hosting a 1K Lorcana tournament. We have 32 players here today playing. And if you'd like to find out more or watch more of today's game, feel free to go over to our YouTube channel, where we'll have the rest of these rounds posted for you later on in the week. Appreciate y'all coming out here on Twitch. Thank you so much for the words of encouragement. We appreciate those. And we like to cover as much Lorcana as we can, especially as the competitive scene continues to grow and as Disney and Ravensburger have announced competitive play for Lorcana. We hope to continue to provide y'all some of the best competitive Lorcana coverage that we can. That game seemed very tense as both players really took their time to play each card, really understanding that every play mattered. As we saw with Steven, it went down exactly to the wire to win the game. That's why sometimes playing these lines can be so hard, because you can really lose or win a game off of one lore. Well, congratulations to Steven for game 2 for squeaking out that win. Let's hope that today, that as we go into game 3, that they can really find out who the top player is for round 5. I just got word from our producers that as these 2 players go into game 3, they've given us a small time extension of 5 minutes. So we're going to see if they can play out this last game, but most likely it'll end up in a draw. We hate to see draws, but sometimes that's how competitive trading card games go. D playing Blue Fairy into a Tinkerbell. Blue Fairy we saw during game 1 just able to draw D lots of cards. Blue Fairy drawing D a card every time he plays a Floodborn. A card that I hadn't seen a whole lot of play, but have seen make tons and tons of draws for D. And there's a shift Tinkerbell from D. What a huge play. Able to deal 1 damage and really just clean up the board there with this 4/5 Tinkerbell. This Tinkerbell being quite a big character, just able to deal with so many things and just sing right afterwards makes Tinkerbell such a great character. Steven, trying to find a way to deal with this Tinkerbell, decides to cast and use his Rush evasive Peter Pan's Shadow. Instead of attacking Big Tinkerbell, decides to attack into the Blue Fairy, which has been drawing D cards. We see D play a Tiana, which we haven't seen too many cards of Tiana yet, but what a great character from a great movie. Hopefully we'll see more cards of her in the future. Steven trying to find some more resources and answers for this Tinkerbell, which is luring for 2 every turn. Plays a Merlin Rabbit to draw a card. D playing very quickly as the time extension is coming close to an end with only 5 minutes being added. Plays a Merlin Goat, gains lore, and passes. Tinkerbell with that 4/5 body, able to lord for 2 every turn. Just really turning cards sideways at this point. Steven finds his answer in Madame M. Fox, able to get rid of and clean up that Tinkerbell. Steven most likely being happy with able to trade this Madame M. Fox into that Tinkerbell. Looks like the players are talking. Trying to figure out what is next. Again, it's not what we want to see, but sometimes that's how competitive trading card games go. That going to time is something that can be inevitable when 2 great competitive players are facing one another. Sometimes these games just go back and forth and ends in a draw between the 2. D going up to 10. Plays a Madame M. Fox, choosing a target. Looks like they might be on rounds. They could be on turn 2, actually. D getting a lore going up to 11 by bouncing the goat with the Madame M. Fox. One of the MVPs of today's match on round 5 has really been Merlin Fox, as well as Madame M. Fox, as well as Merlin Rabbit, drawing so many cards for both of these players. Even with its 4 uninkable 2/3 body, that draw ability makes it so powerful, giving lots of resources to whichever player is playing it. Steven playing an Ursula, taking a little and chipping a little bit away from D's lore pool. We've mentioned this before, but this Ursula being a 2/8 with the ability 4 for 3 has been a big problem for D, who has only found solutions in either Elsa or Yzma. And there goes the handshake. Players have gone to rounds. They've gone to the last turn, and that is the end of the match. Sad we weren't able to see a ending between D and Steven that resulted in the full victory. But even a draw between the two going into the final game into top 8 is not necessarily a bad thing for both players depending on their ties. I want to thank everyone again so much today for joining us here at 20 Lore Pro as we're here in College Station at Clockwork Games hosting a 1K Lorcana tournament. I want to thank y'all so much for watching, and if you missed any of the rounds in the past or you want to rewatch any of today's footage, head on over to our 20 Lore Pro YouTube where we have tons of deck techs as well as deck discussions. Feel free to join our 20 Lore Pro Discord where we have tons of deck lists, deck discussions, and other upcoming events that you can check out, as well as our Crimson Lion Games Lorcana tournament coming up on February the 3rd with the grand prize of a Elsa Enchanted. Sad to see these two players draw, but that happens to be the case sometimes. Thank you so much for joining us for round 5. As some of you may know, some players like to split in the top 8 or in the top 4. So we'll see if whether or not we can get a top 8 match or a top 4 match if that comes to it. And we'll keep y'all updated in the Twitch chat as well as coming live here on Twitch after the timer. Thank y'all so much again for tuning in. Feel free to use your Twitch Primes if you haven't used those on any other channel and you'd like to stay up to date on what we're doing. Hope to see y'all here in just a little bit, and I'll talk to y'all then.